Hi there. I'm just about to meet with world famous drummer Gary Wallis, who's just come off the back of the Il Divo World Tour. He's also played with the likes of Pink Floyd, Mike and the Mechanics, Girls Aloud, and Atomic Kitten, to name a few. You've just come off tour with Il Divo World Tour as MD and drummer. I mean, what goes into putting a show like that together? A, from a drumming point of view, but also from a musical
as little as possible. What goes into it? Well, it's obviously that thing of sitting down and studying all the arrangements, trying to interpret that from the record, and what you can do to put that into a live stage, and bring a little more life to it, a little more dynamic. You know, to it's just to make it a little more presentable to the audience, because records, you know, they can be very, without offending anyone, a bit homogenized. So yes, to make the dynamic ranges a little bit bigger, you know, a little interplay for the audience. You know, put spaces in it where the boys can be a bit freer, we can be a bit freer. Just a bit of reaction stuff. Yeah, and then programming all the Pro Tools, my favourite job. Yeah, and then getting that, and then rewriting the scores to interpret all the changes that I've done. So I have to rescore that, rechange the parts, go and sit with the orchestra, rehearse them, make sure I haven't screwed up all the parts, got it all completely wrong as usual. Yeah, then there's the whole process of pulling all that together, then present it to the artist and seeing if it works. That's kind of the setup thing, really.
As far as drums go, I mean, what's different from a gig like?
To be honest with you, playing as soon as you kind of stick MD at the front of the job title, the drumming thing was like, oh, that thing I used to do over there. It's like a long way. It's like the last thing it ever gets dealt with, you know. Constantly playing catch up to you know, to play the drums. It's always, you know, as the MD, so focused on the artist, the orchestra, the band, all the other elements, the production, how it all shakes hands with each other. And that bit that you do, I'll sort that bit out in a minute. I'll do that, and I'll do that tomorrow. I'll work on that tomorrow. I'll work on my sounds tomorrow. But what was it? How does it differ from other things? You say?
From let's say a pop gig, you know, you did things like Girls Aloud and that. Is it a different gig?
Essentially, Il Divo, it is a pop gig, really, because these are 90% of them are well-known kind of pop tunes. They've just been reworked in an orchestra style. But it's, you know, pop rock approach. You know, there's just a bit more pompous string action at the front. You know, have a beer for a few bars, and then come smashing in for the key change at the end. Yeah, it's a standard. I mean, that's the thing that's quite interesting about them. It's the thing that makes it a great crossover act. The fact it is an opera act, but the fact it really is a pop act. Just had this opera kind of voices grafted on top of a very popular pop format that everyone recognises. So everyone goes, oh, I like this. Oh, I know this. So, you know, yeah, it's in this instance, playing drums in this is not that much different. It's a bit slower, you know. It's like an elephant dancing, you know, real big, don't move too fast type thing.
You've done a lot of gigs in your time so far.
Yeah.
What are some of the more memorable gigs, or some of the gigs that you've enjoyed? You know, shows.
Oh, the most memorable.
Yeah. Apart from being here today with me.
That really is the pinnacle of my career, obviously. You know, the highlight, the zenith. You know, good or the bad bits, memorable wise.
Both.
No, interesting one, because it's been a pretty active career and it's been pretty perverse, to say the least. I remember I was doing this TV show many, many years ago, and it was one of those things, you know, you're in the house band and they kind of wheel on the acts, wheel them on, wheel them off. You kind of get a run through in the afternoon, get the charts, read it. And was it, who sang Agadoo? Agadoo, who sang Agadoo?
So there's two guys.
Black Lace, not Black Lace. Is it Black Lace? Yes. they just actually announced that you're going to have to play Agadoo. And I tossed my fucking sticks straight over the front of the drum kit. I said, fuck that, I'm not playing with them. I don't care how much money you've got, fire me. And after a really big to-do with me and the director, show producers, you know, musical director, you know, I was cajoled back behind my drum kit. And I had to play Agadoo without actually trying to chainsaw one of them in half. That was a very memorable moment in my career. On the kind of worst side. On the, you know, the more glorious side. Remember I was playing at Nebworth with Pink Floyd, obviously a great honour. And it was that great day for Nordhoff Robbins where it was, you know, it was Pink Floyd and McCartney and Genesis and Status Quo and Tears for Fears. You know, you kind of name it. It was like the rock and roll royalty list, you know. And it was such a magnificent day, and there was an awful lot of people there. And you know, and as I say, all these people had gone before us, and we were standing side stage watching Zeppelin play and everything. It was like, wow, you know, and it was 5 or 6 hours with your jaws open. And then our moment comes, we kind of go shuffling on, you know, stage turns around, 200,000 people, we're here, counting the first song. And it was all going great and tingling and everything. And then we start playing Comfortably Numb, and then the heavens open over Nebworth. And there's a storm like the end of the world, and it just hits the stage, and the lightning strikes the stage. And it rains like you've never, it really was Noah's Ark type rain. And I just remember playing there, and all of my drums were full up with water, and I got a great shot playing, and all the water's coming out the drums, and Gilmore's playing guitar. And we're all being pinned to the back of the stage by this storm, playing Comfortably Numb with all the night lights up Nebworth, and you're thinking, if there was ever a moment in rock and roll I wanted to be in, this is it. Thanks, big guy. You know, that's kind of two of the extremes. I could give you more if you want.
Yeah, keep going.
Live Aid was amazing, actually. I was 19, and I got a call off David Bowie to join the Power Station with Robert Palmer. And Tony Thompson playing drums, I played percussion. And it was great, you know, young cute, hey, fantastic, top of the world type thing, Mum. And they said, look, we're doing Live Aid. Okay, great. So we go on and the stage turns around for the first time, like 19, talk about brown pants, you know, full up, everything, absolutely, and play it. And, you know, completely overwhelmed, Live Aid, you know, young, and come off, go and get a shower, get some new clothes on, and come running straight back on with Duran Duran, which was amazing, playing twice at Live Aid. And we played like the Bond theme, View to a Kill, and it was #1, the Bond film was out, and there we were, and the lights had just dropped over JFK Stadium, and you could see the stadium with the lights on for the first time, and then we played Don't Save a Prayer for Me Now, and they put the videos of all the starving children, and the lights came down, and the whole of JFK Stadium just went deathly silent, and then just burst into tears. And I can remember playing that thinking, this is also a great moment. You know, and then me in floods of tears on stage playing, but that was an amazing emotional moment, you know, musically emotional, and being really young as well, and just thinking, I don't know what this is all about. Well, this is so new. You know, every fibre in your body just tingling, thinking, quite like this job. And she's pretty in the front.
You're pretty well known for using electronic drums.
Mm.
What first turned you on to using them?
It was obviously TV that turned me on to them. I just started as a pro player, I think. And I can remember hearing, just hearing new sounds on the radio, and there was a very, you know, it's just Simmons had just kind of hit the map with like 3 kits or something. I think it would have been 84 then. And I was really intrigued by them. I thought, wow, drumming, but new sounds, new tones. So I investigated it further, went up to Dave Simmons and bought the 4th Simmons drum kit that he ever made. my SDS5, still got it. Glorious thing that it was. Yeah, and just sat and fiddled with it. And then, you know, there was only kind of 4 presets on each pad, but, you know, being just having a drum kit up until that point of your life, that's all you had available. It didn't matter where you played it, that's what was available. Having these 4 or 5 pads to the left and having 4 or 5 sounds to draw from and incorporate, it's like, wow, the world has just opened up. So I started bringing it on gigs, incorporating it, and then I got to know Simmons very well, and they signed me in their kind of R&D department. So I sat and developed a lot of stuff with them. And in the meantime, like the LM1 drum machine came out. I bought the first one off the boat because when I started playing with Simmons things, what happened was it was a really easy interface for me. No manual. It came out the box and went, okay, I understand this. It's always been that way for me. It's always been a pretty simple interface. So then the Lynn drum machines came out, and I thought, okay, first one of those, and then because they were kind of everyone at the States where they were using Lynn drum machines, they came here, you know, about 6 months after. But there was only 2 or 3 around, and the other ones that were around, people just were like, what do I do with this big white book thing and the square kind of box thing? How does it work? You know, and I got very professional at it very quickly. So then I was booked as a drum programmer. You know, so I'd go on studio dates and get booked to play acoustic drums and then cut 2 or 3 tracks as a programmer. Like really, really early doors programming gigs, and it was great, you know. And all of a sudden there was this whole market. No one could program a drum machine. Everyone wanted this sound. It's like, call him. And it just worked my arse off, just doing tons of sessions programming. You know, and then that thing, you kind of, you know, you're young, you're very interested in the technology, so anything new comes out, the market shifts at any point, you're on it, you want to get the new gear. And so out of that was born my complete thirst for electronic drums. And it's still like that, I'm afraid.
So when did you kind of make the transition from the kind of Simmons kits to using Roland V drums?
V drums? Only recently, when you gave me some. No, but I didn't make the switch till, you know, till we got together and you let me have a look at that kit, and I'd looked at it before. Up until then, I'd seen the other Roland kits, and I didn't think a lot of them. They were good, and they were very good, and they played really well, and they had a great response. The pads were beautiful, but what it was as a pro player, I was really constricted by what the soundscape, you know, the availability of sounds there. It was like, great, they're all nice, but, you know, being a pro player, I needed sounds that you'd put on a record. So I needed to come and, you know, and use those, especially in live situations. And I didn't get into Roland things because they were very limited in that area. This one still is a bit. I love it, don't get me wrong. But please make one of those nice sound things where you can put your own sounds in sample. Thanks. Yeah, so that's been a couple of years ago. It is actually been 2 years, I think, now. I used it a lot in Schiller, that band. You'll probably ask me about them. But yeah, big German band. That's a real heavy electronic setup. I used a lot of Roland stuff in that, which was great. Because that was a huge acoustic thing and a real big electronic thing to the left of it. It was a lot of switching between acoustic and electronic drums at really high speeds, and a lot of it. What was great about that transition, because of the V pads, I'm just checking what they're called, but because of those, you know, the transition between both drum kits, there wasn't any, all had similar responses. All the stick coming back, you know, was all pretty similar off of each head. It's like, oh great, I can run around off this, and it's not that thing of going from a lovely, soft, lovely thing to a set of tabletops over here. Yeah, that's how it used to be. So, yeah, so that's kind of that's my plug for Roland.
So you mentioned Schiller a second ago, the German outfit that you played with. That was, as you said, quite a mammoth setup of acoustic and electronic.
Yeah.
You played that kit actually standing up.
Yeah.
When was the first time you did, or I should say, why did you decide to play standing up? What prompted you to do that first?
Well, back in the day, I used to play a lot of percussion, especially Nick Kershaw's band back in the day, and that kind of rack system came out, and I got one. I thought, let me build this just ridiculous cage and have all the drums upside down and around me. So, okay, I've got all the tones I need, but it's going to look much bigger and it's going to look great from the audience point of view. Being a flash sod, basically. And then that kind of carried through to the Pink Floyd years. And I had this huge setup and all the stuff, whistles and bells everywhere. And there was a couple of songs where Nick asked me to play drums on. They wanted a couple of double drum things. I'm thinking, okay, I'm standing up here playing all this. Drums, that's interesting. So then we got in a couple of kick drums, planted a couple of snare drums in the rig, a couple of like X-hats closed. And for those songs, I learnt to stand on one foot, play kick, snare and hat, do the tom fills and do all this in this very open type way. And then it grew out of that, kind of thinking, quite like the stand-up thing. It's quite groovy because it gives you a really, really different headspace when you play. When you're behind a kit, you're playing at this thing, it's there, and you're very driven from the seat, your pants playing through it. When you're standing up, you don't have this center anymore. It's not being projected from here. It's all up here. So you've got, all of your weight down here, but you play much more like a percussionist because your body shape is different. It's not here, it's down there. So everything all becomes really free, and you play like a percussionist. The way you hit is much more like a timbali player, basically. And it causes you to think very differently, play very differently. And, that's great. I quite like that. And also, it's a thing you can just stop and just wander over and have a beer when you feel like one, which is handy, But, you can't, it's really hard to get off your seat and get unplugged, where you can just go, blah, blah, just wander, have a beer, have a couple of puffs of your cigarette, wander back in, And it's also, there's the show thing, the show aspect of it, that always looks good, It's that thing, when you go and see a concert, if you're playing on stage, you're sitting there and you look at those people at the back and you think, wow, they look like ants, so I look like an ant. What the hell can they see? So anything you can exaggerate in the show ultimately looks better for them, Stage makeup, stage drumming, you know the deal. You flounce around like a great big fairy.
You get much chance to kind of learn that style, because obviously standing up is very different. Very different approach, as you said. Do you get a chance to learn that on the gig, or was it a case of you kind of practice it at home?
Very much learn on the gig. Yeah, very much learn on the gig, Or learn on the gig, or what's quite good about some of those big bands, there's very, very prolonged rehearsal periods. There's a lot going on, a lot of lights, a lot of production, so you have to stay in rehearsals for a long time. So when I say on the gig, there was a lot of time to put things up in rehearsals, get it wrong, go, change this shit tomorrow, change it, I can't play it like this. So there's a lot of, we got to experiment a lot, especially with positionings. That's the key to it, is where your body naturally falls. Because when you're standing up, it's all wrong as well. So it's working out where your arms fall, and that was good in rehearsals, was allowed to sit and move stuff around a lot, Yeah, kind of on the gig, on rehearsal type development. What better place, really, because it doesn't really count until you're actually playing it in front of people or in performance, because your headset's very different, isn't it? Yeah. As a player. Exactly.
So let's go forward a little bit.
I thought you said let's go on holiday. Say, give me your phone number first.
I could do with a holiday. You've just come off tour with Il Divo.
Yeah.
So, as far as V-drums are concerned, what did you use on that gig? Because that's quite an orchestral gig.
Well, that's funny you should say that, because there was the big kind of rock drum thing, which is taken care of by that. And I had a few pedals hidden in the kit, and a few pads. And what was great, that allowed me to cover the orchestral side of the gig. So I could have orchestral bass drums and tam-tams, timps, field drums, you know, tubular bells, all of those things, and I could dial different patches up. And you know, instead of that thing of being like in a percussion rig where you have to run around and play the tims and the tubular bells over here and stuff, what was good, I could just make a patch, you know, and put them all in a list, you know, tims, so play the tims into the chorus, move through a patch, play the tubular bell part, move back to the same timp patch, play the timp part again, move forward, another patch, you know, a crescendo cymbal, sus cymbal, into a tam-tam, or some platy cymbals with a bass drum under that, back into the new timp patch, play the timp patch. So I could read the part and create the whole percussion section on a couple of pedals and 5 pads. You know, I could recreate the whole orchestral thing without moving, which was really good, you know, and could take care of the business there. And you know, at that point, then the rock drum kit comes in. You go, you know, flats in Dagenham, crack, off you go on the big ones, you know.
What were the first shows that you used V drums on? Do you remember when that was?
I actually think the first time I used it was Schiller, that really huge setup, that big kind of £1 million pad setup. Because that was when we first met, and I kind of I got to look at the V drums properly, you know, out of the box, and not just some guy in the shop saying, "Don't touch them, don't touch them." What does he do? Don't touch them, you know. Yeah, and that was the first time I really got to use them. It was a couple of years back now. You know, worked out great.
And where can people see that performance?
Oh, the Schiller Live DVD. What's it called? Bloody hell! But if you go onto like the, you know, I think it's schiller.de, you know, German band. They've got all the live videos there, and it's a fantastic, it's like an hour-and-a-half concert. Roland pads for days, you know. But yeah, that's a good one to check out. There's a few. There's, you know, the couple of last pop tours I did. Sorry about the pop word. That Girls Aloud and Atomic Kitten, which I did it with Toby. Yeah, they're all on that, you know, and that was another great thing as well. You know, you kind of got the rock kind of acoustic setup there, and I had that kit, and I had a complete Roland kit to the left. And you could just turn around, and, you know, they've got some pop songs, you know, which have got an acoustic feel. And then there's a lot of other songs where they've got that real hard 4 on the floor thing, you know, real dance floor kind of 909, you know, stuff. But it's great, because just turn around and just go into that world and play it, and have a real electronic, bass player goes electronic, everyone goes electronic. So all of a sudden you're generating a proper electronic sound, like a dance floor should be. You know, it's not some dodgy bloke playing his pub drums next, you know. It's real, you know, real triggered sounds. So, you know, you can play it really, be really exact about it. And, it, you know, you do sound like a load of machines. And that's the charm of those records. So another good instance of being able to reuse that, you know, making it 2 different worlds, but still drumming and clouting the shit out of everything, you know.
Now, you've mentioned quite a lot of high-profile acts that you've played with already, and you've obviously played with a lot of the top names in the music industry. What do you think makes you extremely hireable as a drummer?
Cheap.
Why do they keep calling?
Dead cheap. Really cheap. Do bar mitzvahs, anything. You like birthdays, you know, a couple of quid, I'm yours.
I did hear someone say that you were the best drummer in your price range as well.
And below.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't know. You know, it's the old thing that we all practice very hard. We all try very hard. You do your homework. You invest a lot of time in it. It's the thing you love. And then you're in a position to be lucky enough to show your wares. And then, if you can show your wares, be adaptable, apply yourself, and have a good attitude about doing it, all of a sudden, it just makes you a very, very hireable commodity. You can do the electronic thing, you can do the acoustic thing, you can do the MD thing, you can read well, you've got a very good overview about it, you can be a decent chap, you turn up at the right time, you go home at the right time, you come in with your stuff in order, you keep your house tidy at all times. People go, oh, quite like that, can I have that again? It's like going to any supermarket, you know, you go and buy a nice product, you buy it twice, tastes nice twice, I'll keep buying it. It goes in the larder, it becomes a fixture, you know. That applies to any, you know, professional body of work that you do, or any professional And the last but not least, damn lucky. There is that factor to always be factored in. Damn lucky that you get to show your wares in the nicest supermarket.
Great. So if people want to see you play, a lot of drummers will be watching this, and I guess will have probably seen you play, or at least heard you play, and not realised it was you.
Probably best because I'm ugly.
Yeah. Where can they check out some of the stuff you've done?
We all check it out. YouTube, man. It's the place, you know. What's great about YouTube, it's got, it's legitimately got a lot of nice excerpts from all those videos that you've done. Recent one, Mike and the Mechanics, we did a little gig at Shepherd's Bush. You've seen that. It's quite a nice little one to see. As I say, the Schiller things. There's a couple of Pink Floyd DVDs. Pulse. And the Delicate Sound of Thunder. God, I'm getting old, I can't remember what I played on. The Schiller thing. The Girls Aloud was a recent one, Atomic Kitten was a recent one. That's like 5 or 6, 7 DVDs. But there's nothing what you would call like real drummer, because, that's not my thing. I like to play in a band and being part of the team. I like to watch all those other really good guys play the fancy stuff,
Do you think that's important in like the current climate? There's a lot of drum clinics going on now. There's a lot of
it's a very, very, it's a very precarious subject, really. I mean, not for me, it doesn't work for me, because I've never enjoyed that aspect of drumming at all. It's never, but I really marvel at it, and I wonder at it, and I watch it myself and think, wow, I don't know how much it applies to any music that you record or bands that you play with. I mean, it's great to have all those chops, and it allows you to interpret whatever's in your mind, which is great, but it's never really been for me. I mean, I like band drummers, bands, like Al Green's drummer. It was Al Jackson, isn't it? Guys, just really big fat grooves. You don't even know they're there. That's the thing that excites me. I mean, Horses for Courses. Some of the more fusion rock bands. Yeah, it's great. I mean, it just doesn't work for me. I like to see bands as a cohesive unit, and no one sticking out too much, and everyone doing their bit. And when the spotlight shines, yeah, they show themselves. But I like to see it all in a cohesive band unit. And I always find that thing. Any one instrument played out of context and without other instruments, I find tough. Let it be piano where you can accompany yourself, and it makes more sense then. It's a whole range, a full range instrument. But most other things, I don't like to hear them chew out on their own, especially not saxophone.
I guess there's a fine line between the kind of musicality and technicality.
Yeah, well, technicality should be just a vehicle so you can actually transcribe what's from your mind to your hands. That's all technique is for. It's about the execution of what's in your head. But unfortunately, that gets taken over by the execution of what's in your hands for a few people. And drums for drum's sakes, but money for God's sakes. You've got to be a pro.
That's a lovely line to finish on. A little bit of 10cc.
Yeah. The thing that makes it a great crossover act, the fact it is an opera act, but the fact it really is a pop act. Just had this opera kind of voices grafted on top of a very popular pop format that everyone recognises. So everyone goes, "Oh, I like this. Oh, I know this." So yeah, it's in this instance, playing drums in this is not that much different. It's a bit slower, It's like an elephant dancing, real big, don't move too fast type thing.
You've done a lot of gigs in your time so far.
Yeah.
What are some of the more memorable gigs, or some of the gigs that you've enjoyed?
Yeah, then it's the whole process of pulling all that together, then presenting it to the artist and seeing if it works. That's kind of the setup thing, really.
And as far as drums go, I mean, what's different from a gig like?
To be honest with you, as soon as you kind of stick MD at the front of the job title, the drumming thing was like, oh, that thing I used to do over there, it's like a long way. It's like the last thing it ever gets dealt with, you know. Constantly playing catch up to play the drums. It's always, you know, as the MD, so focused on the artist, the orchestra, the band, all the other elements, the production, how it all shakes hands with each other. And that bit that you do, I'll sort that bit out in a minute. I'll do that. I'll do that tomorrow. I'll work on that tomorrow. I'll work on my sounds tomorrow. But what was it? How does it differ from other things? You say?
From let's say a pop gig, you know, you did things like Girls Aloud and that. Is it a different thing? Or?
Essentially, Il Divo, it is a pop gig really, because these are 90% of them are well-known kind of pop tunes. They've just been reworked in an orchestra style. But it's, you know, pop rock approach. You know, there's just a bit more pompous string action at the front. You know, have a beer for a few bars, and then come smashing in for the key change at the end. Yeah, it's a standard. I mean, that's the thing that's quite interesting about them. It's, you know, it's just to make it a little more presentable to the audience, because records, you know, they can be very, without offending anyone, a bit homogenized. So yes, to make the dynamic ranges a little bit bigger, you know, a little interplay for the audience. You know, put spaces in it where the boys can be a bit freer, we can be a bit freer. Just a bit of reaction stuff. Yeah, and then programming all the Pro Tools, my favourite job. Yeah, and then getting that, and then rewriting the scores to interpret all the changes that I've done. So I have to rescore that, rechange the parts, go and sit with the orchestra, rehearse them, make sure I haven't screwed up all the parts, got it all completely wrong as usual.
Hi there. I'm just about to meet with world famous drummer Gary Wallis, who's just come off the back of the Il Divo World Tour. He's also played with the likes of Pink Floyd, Mike and the Mechanics, Girls Aloud, and Atomic Kitten, to name a few. You've just come off tour with Il Divo World Tour as MD and drummer. I mean, what goes into putting a show like that together? A, from a drumming point of view, but also from a musical.
As little as possible. What goes into it? Well, it's obviously that thing of sitting down and studying all the arrangements, trying to interpret that from the record, and what you can do to put that into a live stage, and bring a little more life to it, a little more dynamic.